Hello, this is National Chess Master, R Rats. I'm here at chess.com, here to continue my video series of the team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 198. Our man is the-kriegspiel, and we have a rating advantage here at the final ratings, 1585 to about 1350. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. It actually was a pretty interesting game, even with the rating difference. Now, here, this is an okay move. White is willing to maybe give up the d4 square. Maybe White wants to play d4, go into like a King's Indian setup. We'll see how Black responds. Also, if White places this pawn here, we have what we call the Botvinnik system because the pawns on those squares can be played with White or Black. Let's see what Black does. And both sides are developing pieces, which is fine. White's refraining from d4, and he develops, which is good. But now Black plays c5. Now I'm sure this is going to transpose into a myriad of variations. It could even become a Sicilian defense, Marazzi bind type position. Could be a symmetrical English. Could be all kinds of things. But as long as both sides are developing, everything should be, so to speak, hunky-dory. So now White goes ahead and plays d4, and Black plays b6. That seemed to me just a little bit timid, but it's still okay. What could Black do without consulting a book different? Well, you could put some pressure on indirect pressure on d4 with bishop g4, but you're probably going to be committed to trading this bishop off for the knight. But that's okay. A lot of white pawns are on light squares the same color as this bishop, so Black should be okay if he does that. Or Black could just simply castle. This is a perfectly logical move. It's just castle. And if White trades pawns, let's get this point the king castling. Black needn't fear queen capture on d8. It'll just bring his rook into play. But b6 seems a little awkward, but it's definitely playable. But here I really question White's next move. I think it was too soon to push d5. And why, you might ask? Well, if you've been watching some of the videos I've been making of this series, you might understand already. First off, too many pawn moves in the opening isn't necessarily good. And actually, Black has made one more pawn move than White has. So castling is just simple and logical. What castling accomplishes, it gets the king to safety, gets the White development all much closer to completion, and White will sit and await developments. And let's just go ahead and look at this move. See, when White pushes d5, maybe he doesn't want Black taking on d4. Well, what's wrong with Black taking on d4? White should be fine. Okay. Again, this is very similar to a Sicilian type position, Marazzi bind. Now Black can play this all kinds of ways. He can try the hedgehog system. He can castle, put the pawn on a6, maybe even put this pawn on e6. Although that weakens d6 a little bit. A lot of hedgehogs. This bishop is sitting on e7. But White just has a little bit more boardroom here. White has no weaknesses. The way to break the Marazzi bind for Black is you're going to get your pieces developed first, then you're going to break with b5. And once you've done that, then you try to break with d5. And if you can accomplish both those things, you've broken the Marazzi bind. Okay, that's the basic concept here. But here, White has no weaknesses in his position, and he also has a lead in development. He's a tempo and a half ahead. Now, where did that tempo and a half come from? Well, the half tempo is having the first move. The other tempo is that Black has made one extra pawn move than White did. Well, actually, two extra moves, but then White's moved this knight twice. But I think White has nothing to fear in this position. But when he plays d5, he's doing this move when his development is not complete. This is also doing a couple of interesting things. Number one, it's opening up this diagonal for this bishop. Try not to make moves that activate your opponent's pieces or improve their scope, okay? Because sooner or later, those pieces are going to find ways to access those open lines. The next thing is it gives up the square e5. Okay. Does that mean much? Well, we'll see as we get closer. Now let's see what black does. Black castles, which is smart. And now here, once again, white starts to swim a little bit. His last two moves have been suspect. That knight could have, if black had took, and there's nothing making him take it, on d4, that knight could have been on d4. What white's trying to do here is play f4. That's what he's trying to do. But what's wrong with developing first and then preparing f4? Because maybe you don't know what black's going to do. Maybe in a few moves you don't even want to play f4. So why not reserve those options? Complete the development first, see what your opponent's up to, and then formulate a plan. So I think that's just a little early. And here, there's one other strategy we need to discuss. We have these so-called pawn chains, okay? White has two of them, black has one. Well, according to the strategy, what you want to do is you want to attack in the direction your pawn chain points. So this is the indicated move for black. Now white could be eventually preparing this move, but the more natural move is to prepare e5. And for that case, I can understand f4 is needed to do that. But why not develop first? Once again, I'll reiterate that. If you're not sure what to do, develop a piece. You can always put your plan in motion down the line. And here, I think black maybe committed a minor strategic error. A good move to do instead would be put the knight on a6. Okay, there for a moment it keeps an eye on a4. Should white play, or b4 rather, should white play a4, there's no guarantee he's going to do it, suddenly that knight has a nice outpost. But also, more importantly, the knight can then drop back to c7, which eventually supports a b5 break. Black may need to get some more pieces on that, maybe even in the queen to get a battery here, but eventually black can get b5 in. Now we have a clear-cut strategy for black to follow. As the game continued, we didn't really see a clear-cut strategy for black. So you want to start formulating a plan, and you can do that with if you understand the patterns and how to play certain positions. So here, what black is going to be doing is in a box. And while black's busy doing all that, white's getting ready to play e5. Both sides are going to get their break in, and whoever has the better strategy after that, or implements it quicker to get some play, has the better chances to win the game. Okay, so, but knight b7 isn't a bad move. It just doesn't give black many options. Okay, white castles, and now I think coming into e5 was just a little premature. And I want to make a very important point here, because now he brings the knight back. It's this position with I've done this in some of these other videos and many in the past. It's this position with white to move. But let's just, for the fun of it, go back to when white castled. I'm going to be clicking back and forth here. Okay, let's first watch the black position. Now just click back. What happened? Nothing happened in black's position. Now I'm going to click to, this is after white castled with black to play. Now I'm clicking to this position after move 10 with white to play. Do you see the difference? White picked up an f4 move, and it's his move. Okay, that's how white's position changed. He played at, oops, didn't mean to hit that. Let's do it again. White in this position, wait, here's the position we want. Here's the position with black to play. And here's the position with white to play. So in effect, when black plays knight e5 and then brings the knight back, what black is saying, hey, you know what, white? It's my move, but I'm going to make you a deal. Here's the deal. If you will play f4, I won't move this turn. If you will play f4, I'll let you play that and any move of your choice. Now that's usually a deal you can't resist, and that's exactly what happens. So f4, knight d7, now it's white to play. Now I think he was too quick with f5, to be honest. once again, this hands this e5 square back to black. But I think, as I've been saying all along, white was too quick with his central expansion. He's not completely developed yet. Look at this. Look at this right here. How are these guys going to help? The answer is they're not. So had white found a way to get this bishop up to d3 or e3, perhaps the queen to d2, swing this rook over to e1, then you can decide if you want to try something novel like f5 or go with the thematic move e5. So I've already indicated that e5 is the preferred break according to Grandmaster theory, that they've said attack in the direction your pawn chain points, attack the base of the pawn chain. White has gone against Grandmaster theory and tried something else. Now, how to crack something like that? Well, the first thing black does is say, gee, thank you so much. I'm going to go back and occupy that square. Thank you. So now black's occupying a square that white allowed him to. And now that opens up a file. Both sides have a rook now on a fully open file, but there's a knight in the way. And now I guess white decides he doesn't want a knight going back to g4. Well, what's wrong with that? Let him. Just let him. One interesting idea is put the king on h1, bring the bishop to e3, and if you get kicked, bring it back to g1. That's one idea. Another idea is just put the bishop on d2 and go from there. Then bring the queen up, and at least your pieces are developed. See, it's not clear exactly how white is going to proceed here, simply because he no longer has an e5 break. He's surrendered that square. And even though there's a lot of wood in between the bishop and the a1 square, or b2 square if you rather, even though there's 3 knights in between, that diagonal can open up in a hurry, and there could be problems. So h3 doesn't, it keeps the knight out, but you didn't have to let the knight get to e5 to even threaten to go there. That's my point. You develop your pieces. Don't move pawns. Okay, now white creates a threat, or black creates a threat. He's on c4, and now we start seeing positions where maybe if this pawn comes up, maybe that diagonal's getting dangerous. There could be all kinds of discoveries, very, very serious nuisances here. Anyway, white comes up with an interesting defense. He goes ahead and gives up the pawn because he's going to get it back in a different way. He takes here. Now that removed the defender of the bishop on c4, so it needs to stop and take here. And now the long diagonal is closed. But what's happened? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's cost white a pawn to do this. Can white get it back? Both of white's bishops are gone, and this is a type of position that's might end up seeing the center open up, and a bishop would really be handy in a position like this. If this pawn is which was blocked earlier, could advance, there's a whole neat diagonal there pointed at the black king. So trading pieces has actually reduced white's winning chances. So black comes up, defends his pawn before it's attacked, and white goes and attacks it. And now there comes a tactic. The tactic is the theme, the overworked piece. The overworked piece in this case is the queen. The queen is defending a pawn and it's defending a knight. So black simply eliminates it, and now black has won another pawn. Now his one pawn advantage is a double pawn, but this certainly made black's task a lot easier. Now white protects his pawn on b3, and now black sees this open file. He'll use it. White was trying to attack and never got a chance to attack. And then white immediately makes a blunder. He needs to retreat the queen back to e3, and it's a fight. But this just allows a simplifying tactic. Black happily trades queens and gets a very annoying fork. And there's nothing white can do about it. You can't pin the pawn because you lose the rook. And black is just winning a piece, and the game just falls apart quickly. And And at this point, white chose to resign. Okay, so yeah, I thought white played a reasonable game, just a few little iffy moves in there, and I think black did fine too. So, but white just tried a little to do stuff a little too quick and gave black an open door here. Okay, let's load up the other game. Okay, now I'm going to flip the board. The Kriegspiel is white this time. And we have Larsen's opening. And now one of the whole themes of the whole modus of this particular variation is the pressure on the E5 square. And black's move does nothing to take it away, take that pressure off. White could, if he so choose, take this knight and then win a clear pawn. But white decides that he'll just develop a piece. And I really don't know opening theory. Can black get away with e4? Well, here we go, opening up diagonals again for a bishop. I don't know exactly what theory says on this. That's for you guys to look up. But black now commits an error. Perhaps what he could do is f6, but you have to watch out for these tricks of a knight takes here. It can get very tricky. Followed by bishop takes, and then maybe a queen check. There's a lot of these possibilities in this Larsen opening. If you do a little research on it, you'll discover them. But here, I think black commits a very serious error. Whether f6 is safe or not, I don't know. But it's one of the risks of playing this. I know bishop d7. I'm pretty sure that's not the accurate move here. But black does commit a blunder here. Since white was undermining e5, why stop and kick this bishop? Again, comes back to the principle I talk about: pieces, not pawns. Don't make pawn moves when you can develop a piece. There were so many other possible moves there, other than to do this, because this in effect just loses a tempo and it loses a pawn. So now white grabs it, and at this point, white goes ahead and collects the pawn. So here we are at move 7, and white has won a clear pawn with theoretically a strategically winning position. You should not be losing a game 7 moves into the game, okay? If this happens, that tells you you've done something wrong. And in this case, we can say the culprits were black's 4th and 5th moves. And these can be avoided if you stop and look these things up in a database. I'm sure they still publish books on this. It can get expensive getting all these books, but it's all on the databases. One purchased chess base will give you it all, or you can Google. I mentioned many times free online chess databases. Usually, all it takes is a email address, and you can access the files to your heart's content. Play over the games, see what kind of variations you like and don't like, learn the openings, and become a better chess player. Okay, so white's won a clear pawn. Now it's a matter of going forward. And here, white decides I'm just going to liquidate that bishop and double up some pawns. And now I'll castle. That's smart. Okay, now good. Both sides are developing. Now here, I didn't quite understand that move. You're shutting in your bishop. But white has a plan. And it's not overly bad, but my first instinct is to play this pawn to d3, so maybe I can transfer the knight to d2 to f3, where he controls e5. That's my first instinct. Then I could also go to c3 and then come back to e2 and then maybe go to g3 or f4. Either plan is fine, but why shut your own bishop in? Okay, but then black helps. See, white's just shut his bishop in, and black says, okay, you've done a bad move. Let me make it better for you. Okay. Yeah, this is a double pawn. Yes, white can get some pressure and restrain the black queen side. But what's first and foremost important is develop. Okay, get the pieces going. White isn't developed yet completely. Black is actually, let's see, is he ahead in development? Yeah, he's a half tempo ahead in development. Because if he castles, he'll have 2 minor pieces developed and castle, where white will only have 1. So It's not much, but you're down a pawn. You want to get it. 3 tempos is all it takes to have compensation for a lost pawn. So this, in effect, helps white out. Thank you very much. It rids black of his double pawn, but black was a pawn down already. And now he doesn't even stop to take it. So was there something wrong with him taking it? Bishop takes c5. What am I missing? Maybe he didn't like the idea that this bishop would take this, and if the queen took, that this queen would take here. Well, there's a flaw in that. Let's look at it. Here we go. Bishop takes. Okay, so how much did white analyze this, or black analyze this? Okay, as I said, there's a flaw in this. We're going to just go ahead and castle. Okay, now you can't take the rook, you can't take the bishop because the knight is loose. White is now ahead 2 pawns. So let's see. But he's got to deal with this rook. That's the most important thing. So where are you going to put the knight? I guess you have to put it on d2. Now the whole question is, can black gain anything here? He's got a little bit of a development advantage. White is threatening a knight e4. One idea is to do a direct attack against the queen. We're going to give up this bishop. I'm not saying this is good or bad yet. This gives black a rook on the 7th rank. It could come at the price of going down 3 pawns. But it's not all that easy. Okay, after queen takes, black can get one of them back with a nifty little trick. See? Rook takes. Check. Well, maybe it's not so nifty. White's got problems down here on f7. See what happens when you analyze the game? And I didn't see any of this or prepare any of this. I'm just sitting here analyzing a correspondence game just like I did for all those years from the 1980s until about 2001. I'd sit and play out variations and see what happened. Looks like I'm wrong. Maybe black did the right thing and not take that pawn. But he should have played c5 in the first place and opened up the white diagonal. The long diagonal of a1, h8. So what's his alternative here? Well, you can take with a pawn. I mean, you're already down a pawn. You're ahead in development slightly. Well, actually, you're not anymore. White can develop a minor piece and actually be ahead in development now. But for what it's worth, there's a half-open file against the enemy king. We've got a bishop, which is a long-range piece. It could be used to attack the white king. For instance, black can play a move like, be ready to play a move like bishop d6, and this pawn is off limits because of the trick. Bishop takes check. Now you're down a pawn. You got to go for something and give your opponent a chance to go wrong. Strategically, white is winning, but white was winning the moment black played a6. But what can you do? Well, to start with, you can at least say, I can't play c5, and just go ahead and develop. Maybe there's a chance you can go ahead and play c5 and try and get some play. But anyway, he took, and he didn't play here. He played c6. Now white centralizes his queen. And now look at that wonderful battery. Pointed right where black wants to put his king. Okay? That doesn't mean white's going to deliver a mate, but it certainly makes black think a little bit about its moves. Now he blocks the battery, but that's okay. This knight's got new ambitions. a5. Knight h5. And now the knight's wonderfully centralized, and the battery is alive. And now white just goes in for simplifications, which will lead to a winning game. So here, look, he's still getting the double pawns, But now white's ahead in development. Or, I mean, not ahead in development. White's taken black's heavy pieces away from the game. Black could have had a similar position with the queen still on the board and a chance to use this open file. Now he no longer has it. So let's see. White's up now 2 pawns, but one of them's doubled. But then again, all the black pawns are weak. They're all doubled or isolated. And here, just out of general principle, I think black should go wave a rook on the 7th rank. But he didn't. And king up. And now here, it's good to put the rook there. It's nothing wrong with 7th rank, but I think a better move is to put this rook on d6. And the reason I say that is, okay, black doesn't really have any counterplay. He can stop and play rook e8, but white will just slide the king over 1 square. At some point, this rook has to go to c8, where it's completely tied down. And then white will just improve his king position and probably get the king as far up as f5 and eventually zugzwang poor black right out of this game. This just totally ties black in knots. Rook d7 doesn't attack anything. It just keeps pressure on f7. And as we'll see, black actually gets a little activity with his rook. And here white played g3. I guess he figured if king f1, as long as that rook stays there on the e file, I can't get my king into the game, so I'll just try to get him into the game by way of g2. And now rook e5 attacking a pawn, and white gives it away. More subtle would have been to play a4 immediately, but he didn't. Now he plays a4, and black immediately blunders this game away. But at least he had some semblance of activity. He's gotten 1 pawn back, and this rook should come back to e5, but black blunders and just walks into a little trick here. You might want to pause the video and see if you can solve it. And okay, you've resumed the video. White to play and win. You don't win immediately, but you're going to win in several moves. The theme is trapped man. Well, what can be trapped here? A king. Yeah, we love that. That's checkmate. But there's the man. How do we trap it? Well, let's look at the squares. Where can it go? Oh, can't go there. Oh, can't go there. Well, it can get out this way. This own pawn's in its way. So how do we keep it out of e5? That's the only square it can escape on. How do we keep it out of e5? Well, I think you know it now. It's f4. That rook is a goner now. It can't escape. Black attempts to chase the white rook. White starts getting the king closer. The rook just runs away, and he comes up here, and it's quite clear that the rook on c5 is going to be lost. Black cannot defend it in any way, shape, means, or form at all. Could he have done it differently by trying to get the king up to, let's see, f4, try to get the king over to d6? Could he do that? Well, let's take a look at it. Could he? The answer is no, he couldn't. Because now the rook just comes back here. And this rook is still left without a retreat. And well, maybe it gets a little, maybe it's not as easy. Let's see. Let's double check. King here, pawn here. I'm sure this is a winning win for white. Eventually, black's running out of moves. See, you want to be able to answer king d4 with king d6. But as I was saying, black's going to run out of moves here. Okay, rook e1. What are you going to do? Any rook move loses it. A king move loses the rook. That leaves 1 pawn move. And after you play that, now white's got a pass pawn that's going to run, and you're still out of moves. So, black to play loses his rook. It's forced. Anyway, a little opening research could have done better for black here, but well played by white, except I did question the d4 move. and the rook d7 move. But you found the right moves when it mattered. Good job. All right, thank you so much for your time, and be back with the next video soon. Take care.